Before we get started, I need you to stop what you're doing, pause the video, go to Steam, search up Anvil Empires, and sign up for the playtest. The signups are now open, so we officially have our chance to get in the pre-alpha, which begins next week. Now, welcome to the second developer blog for Anvil Empires. Posted on April 13th, also known as today, this one is titled Pre-Alpha and Seasons. It starts off by welcoming us to the second developer blog. They say that during pre-alpha, they're going to be developing new systems and features very quickly, and as a result will be delivering developer blogs regularly for quite some time. For those of you that were around during Foxhole's pre-alpha, you might have an idea of what to expect, as that project also went through the same process. If you haven't read the first developer blog, they provide a link to it right here, or you can watch my previous video covering it. When it comes to how Anvil Empires will be developed, developing an expansive game like Anvil Empires will require a process that's very different from how conventional games are made. There is no game design template to follow, so many of the game's systems will require a high degree of experimentation to get right. This means a lot of testing and a lot of failures along the way. While they'd love to do this behind closed doors, thank goodness they aren't, and release the game to the world when it's ready, this simply isn't feasible for a game that requires thousands of players to function as intended. So they have to be okay with releasing very early builds of the game that contain a lot of flaws and incomplete systems, and to have it all be very public. This, combined with the tight feedback loop with the community, will be the only way to validate features for the expansive game design they have in mind. Also, there are a couple pieces of really cool concept art in this one, but we're going to wait till the end to show those off. To put things into perspective, it took Siege Camp's other game Foxhole over 6 years to go from a small experience of 64 players fighting over a small patch of land to thousands of players fighting in a war that unfolds over many weeks. And while they're confident that this process won't take 6 years for Anvil Empires, it will still be a long journey, but one that they hope many of us will be a part of. And when it comes to what to expect from the pre-alpha development, the pre-alpha will initially be a very early demo containing a small subset of foundational features. It's a bare-bones build designed to scaffolding to help them develop more comprehensive features in the foreseeable future. The best way to look at the pre-alpha is to see it as a platform for development rather than a complete game experience. Below this, they talk about before you sign up for the pre-alpha, you should be asking yourself which of the following categories you fall under. Number 1. I am joining the pre-alpha to get a first glimpse of what Anvil Empires will be like. Number 2. I am joining the pre-alpha to have a new fun game to play on the regular. Or number 3. You are joining the pre-alpha to help the development team test out new ideas and provide feedback. They say if you fall under 1 or 2, then you should not join the pre-alpha at this stage, or you will be significantly disappointed in the experience and you will not be a productive tester. If you fall under 3, then it's appropriate for you to join the pre-alpha tests and your contributions will be valuable. And of course, myself being an upstanding citizen, I will only be trying to join the pre-alpha under the conditions of 3, so we're good there. The tests are going to run roughly once every 2 weeks, but this schedule may change as development evolves. It's crucial to note that not every test will follow the same format. Some will be more focused on building while others on PvP. And sometimes they may simply want to run a technical test or evaluate a specific part of the game. Initially, the server will only be open for a limited time frame, but over time the sessions will last longer and longer. What you can expect from the first few tests is this. The first test will essentially be a technical test to ensure that players can all connect to the server and perform essential tasks and activities. The gameplay will be very thin. The image they have below this serves as a rough outline on what to expect out of the current pre-alpha build. They want us to pay extra attention to the unimplemented features like mining and smithing, which only have temporary stand-in activities that serve as scaffolding until more of the game can be developed. Which is sad for me because that's the main thing I want to be doing, but we'll be there for testing, so that's the main thing. And I suspect that I'll have a lot of feedback on that because I've been exposed to a lot of different crafting systems, and one of the best types that I've come across are ones like Mortal Online or even Life is Feudal, where the more complexity and depth that you have, not to be confused with tedium, is something that I think crafters will appreciate in the long run. So the list starts off by going over the economy. The economy exists as a temporary stand-in, resource types, distribution, and value will be replaced in the future, which hopefully means that we will be able to use silver to trade with each other. Right now the world has one map region, and the environment and climate is static, which we'll go over later, and basic water traversal is functioning, because remember we will have ships in these early pre-alpha testing phases. For settlements you can build basic ones, but most of the structures inside are a standstill and will be replaced in the future. For wildlife, basic wildlife does exist, but the animal AI behavior is primitive. For weapons and equipment, the weapons in the game are also a temporary stand-in that will be replaced in the future, and experimental equipment like carts and horses do also exist. For combat, most of the combat mechanics are a stand-in and will be replaced. There's a lot that's going to get replaced it seems, and there will be mechanics they're experimenting with to encourage melee combat, basic formations, and cooperative sieging. For forestry, forest harvesting does exist, and the refining process is a stand-in that will be completely replaced in the future. Basic mechanics do exist for farming, and right now most of the mechanics are a stand-in, and you know the rest. For mining, this is a complete stand-in one at the moment, and that will also be replaced in the future. Same with smithing, husbandry, and for theming and lore, the visuals are a stand-in and will be completely replaced. Also, only the Ancients and Remnant alliances are currently available. Pagans are going to have to come later. And they mentioned that the experience they wanted to provide is very similar to the colonization of England in the Middle Ages, and at the very bottom they mentioned that this diagram represents only a subset of the systems in the game. There are many features and systems that are not represented here, like the communication tools, alliance mechanics, trade mechanics, graphics, user interface, map screen, etc. If there's one single takeaway from this blog, it's for the community to understand that the basic tasks will now require more steps later. This isn't to make the game unnecessarily complex, but it's to fulfill the goal of thousands of players working together to build an empire in a persistent world that needs to play out over weeks at a time. You can't have that if the empire building part can be done with a couple of mouse clicks over the span of a few hours. The goal is to add meaningful depth and progression to these activities and make them more relevant over multiple play sessions within an age. A warning will appear, like in this picture above, in certain parts of the UI when a certain activity is going to be replaced with a more in-depth system in the future. This doesn't appear for every such activity, but they tried to highlight the areas that will change the most. For example, procuring water may be as simple as building a well right now, but in the future, players will have to consider the aquatic ecosystem of the world and erect aqueducts and other infrastructure to provide water for their settlements. Also, a quick side note, I once watched a video on how intricate the plumbing was under the Roman bathhouses, and it was absolutely wild. We gotta get some of those in the game. For how to sign up in the pre-alpha, we already mentioned that in the beginning. You just have to make sure you go on the Steam page and sign up for the playtest access. And for the very last part, which is the kicker of the dev blog, they've officially given us a sneak peek of the seasons. They say that they're working towards having climate and weather be a foundational part of Anvil from the start. Seasons will be simulated in full and have a long-term impact on settlement gameplay, with tree leaves changing color and withering away in the fall, snow accumulating in winter, and flowers blooming in the spring. They'll have a lot more to say about seasons in the future, but for now we'll have to stay tuned. And the part that's really exciting is already people have kind of speculated on what we might be able to see with this. Will the water itself freeze over in these regions, causing the pagans, for example, not to be able to use their ships? Will they be able to cart them over land to get them to warmer areas where they can traverse over the water? That's a really cool thing to think about. Also, potentially some regions, like in the north, for example, being in perma-winter, where they're going to be harder to take and hold because of the climate. For now, that's everything I wanted to go over for this second developer blog, but definitely let me know what you guys thought about this in the comments below. Make sure to sign up for pre-alpha, and hopefully we'll see you in there.